Hello, and welcome to Conversational Leadership with Jay Mann. I'm your host, Jay Mann, Superintendent of the Creighton School District. And today we have a topic that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about the ruler method. And to do that, we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Amy Burgess. Hello, Amy.
Hello, good morning. Thank
morning.
you for having me.
Yeah, thrilled to have you. I know you've been doing a lot of work in our district, at this point primarily with our administrators, but this is something that's going to be kind of percolating throughout the district. And it has impact, like we talk a lot about on this podcast about leadership concepts. This one's kind of cool because not only does it have an impact on student learning, on behavior in the classroom, on helping teachers have tool sets and students have tool sets, that will help them with being more effective and engaging in the learning experience because they're helping, or it's helping them get control of sort of their emotional state and identifying that, which you'll talk more about in a few minutes. But it really is also a leadership tool set because we talked, people use the terms soft skills or EQ, right? That emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence really is critically lacking if it doesn't start with our ability to self-regulate and control ourselves. And we cannot self-regulate and control ourselves without a methodology to identify that we need to and why we need to and what's happening, right? So if you could give us a brief introduction to who you are and what you do, and then maybe roll from that into why you would be the person leading our ruler efforts here in Creighton School District.
All right, thank you. Well, my name is Amy Burgess. I'm the Director of Student Support Services. I've been in the district maybe 20 years. I was here for 7 years as a teacher, left as an instructional coach to a neighboring district, came back as a assistant principal, then principal, and now director. I've been married for 21 years, and I have two amazing kids, teenagers, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. So if anyone can use some help with some self-regulation skills, it's a parent of two teenagers.
That's fair.
And being married that long.
Yes.
So Ruler is kind of like this unique program that I'm excited that we're working within our district, and I'm excited that we get to roll it out next year to all of the schools.
That's wonderful. So I know we're not the only ones doing this. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about, why we might choose this as an option, how we identified that this might be something effective in our schools.
Well, we noticed honestly, before COVID and after COVID, our students and us as the adults really needed some support in understanding our emotions, how to express them, how to respond to a child's need or respond to our own needs rather than reacting. And I say that for myself too. And so it was just this great opportunity. I know there was a group that went together and looked at several different programs. They toured different schools to see what they would look like. When I was a principal, we really worked hard at implementing a program at our school. And so while I am not perfect in it anyways, it's something that really helps support our students and grow and help them understand their emotions a little bit better. So we're excited to be doing Ruler as the program that was selected for the entire district.
Awesome.
And so I know some of the schools did a little bit of work in it here or there. Some are a little bit farther than others, but we're really excited to be focusing on solidifying the training for everyone. So everyone's getting the same message, everyone's getting the same content, and really understanding that Ruler is not a program, it's a framework. And there's certain skills that align with Ruler.
I love that you kind of gave it that differentiation as a framework, because like as a program, you'd be like, well, you go from A to B to C, right? But as a framework, it's sort of a set of tools. And I think we've talked on this podcast in the past. There's a book by A.J. Crable. Obviously, we're involved in student outcomes focused governance in this district. He's sort of one of the founders of that movement. And one of his more recent books, Our Tools They Deserve, is really about student-led restorative practices. But one of the key concepts in it is that it's that old, thought of, well, for a carpenter, every problem's a nail and every solution's a hammer, right? And so a lot of times, when we see kids acting a certain way, one of the things we don't think about is perhaps this is how they're reacting to stimulus because they only have one sets of tools in their bag, right? So ruler, or I think they also refer to it as the ruler method, right? Obviously what we're trying to do is give people some different tool sets, and as you pointed out, both the adults and the students, and I believe this program comes out of Yale University. Am I
Correct.
correct about that? Okay. So I'm a teacher. I'm going to get trained on this. How is it going to benefit me professionally, and how is it maybe even going to extend out into my personal life a little bit?
So can provide a couple of examples. So
Yeah.
as a teacher, the first step is, well, as a district, the first step is training the adults. There is
Right.
not a lot of work that's going to be happening right now with kids. It's really all about us as the adults understanding the framework, learning the tools, applying the tools to ourselves so that we can practice them and understand them. And it's going to help because there are moments in any person's life, adult, child, within the community, parents, students, where we have good days and we have bad days. We have days that are frustrating. We have days that are hard. We have days that are amazing and excellent. And the first step is really just like understanding and recognizing what those emotions are. Like you want to recognize how you're feeling like, oh, I'm really excited today because or, oh, I didn't sleep so well last night. I'm having a really hard day. And just recognize how you're feeling your emotions and then understanding how that's impacting you.
Yeah.
And then what we'll be teaching is how to label those emotions. And if you notice, that kind of follows the ruler acronym.
Okay.
And then how we express those emotions. And then how we regulate those emotions.
Perfect.
Because you can't be at a 10 and super full of energy and high all the time and ready to go because that'll be exhausting.
Right.
You also can't be really sad or down all the time because that's not a good place to be either.
Right.
What ruler teaches us is that all emotions are important. All emotions are valid. They're neither good nor bad. It's how we express them and how we understand them and how we can regulate them in order to kind of move through our day. And if we're kind of stuck in one spot, ruler teaches us how to shift our mindset or to try different skills to shift into a different direction.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a powerful tool, right? And I think any of us can benefit from it. So you mentioned, like, as you were listing, you were kind of giving us some of the components in order, right? So why don't we do that a little more formally?
Sure.
I know I'm putting you on the spot because now you've got to remember an acronym in sequence in the moment. So go ahead and fire away.
So ruler is you want to recognize your emotions is the R. The U is you want to understand your emotions. So like recognize I'm feeling this way, understand why I'm feeling this way, and then actually label that emotion because there's so many emotions that can look like maybe I'm really angry is what is appearing outwards, but trying to understand it because while it might appear that I'm angry, I might be anxious, I might be scared, I might be tired, I might be hungry, and understanding that. So you want to label those emotions, then you want to be able to express those emotions and regulate. So if I am appearing to be a certain way, then I want to really just focus on how can I regulate myself? What tools work for me? And so Ruler's going to talk about a couple of those tools that you can use. One I find myself using, and it's a tool in Ruler, is the meta moment. To the point where even my daughter, she'll sit in the car and she'll hear me. It's called the meta moment, where you pause for a moment. You take a deep breath, you picture your best self, and then you advance forward. And so my daughter will see me in the car and we'll be driving or just at home and she'll hear me do this real big heavy sigh. She's like, what's wrong? I was like, nothing. I'm just taking a moment to kind of help pause myself, help bring myself back to where I want to be. And how Ruler talks about in the meta moment is picturing your best self because no one wants to come out. Their best self isn't this angry person. I know things that bother me, like when I come home and I've asked someone to unload the dishwasher and then the dishwasher's not unloaded and the dishes are piled up in the sink. I know that that's a trigger for me. And so as a parent, I'm just just pause a moment. Screaming at people is not going to be is not my best self. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to regulate. And then I'm going to express this is what I need to be done. And I'm going to go do this. By the time I come back, this needs to be done. And that has honestly helped me personally. I know it's helped me as a principal. It helped me just as a director, especially when I'm having those difficult moments, just pausing, taking those deep breaths, and moving and picturing my best self, and then advancing forward. It's been the tool that I find myself using the most.
That's pretty powerful. And I know breathing is a very effective method for self-regulation, right? So I know some people use box breathing, or there's different counted breathings like, 4-second, 5-second breathing. I think I probably have the wrong names for them, but it actually is a pretty powerful self-regulation tool. And I think, taking that meta moment is really incredible. But one of the things you said, I think, is really powerful, because what I notice is one of the problems when we're triggered or we're, in a dysregulated state, it's hard to get out of. And the reason it's difficult to get out of, from my perception very often, is because you're not being your best self. And I think deep down psychologically, and I'm no psychologist, so everything I'm saying may be wrong here, but I know for me, one of the things I recognize is that once I've shown my worst self, I'm embarrassed. And that embarrassment causes me sometimes to double down on, trying to justify why I'm in this state, which helps keep me in that state. And so being able to pause and think about, how do I want to be seen? How do I want to be perceived? How do I reflect my best self, really is a great way to come back to center, especially if you take that moment first to take those breaths and, get yourself to like a little bit of a better place of calm as you reflect on that. So,
well, and just think about how hard that is for us as adults to do. So
Right.
imagine how it's even harder for our students who may not understand what they're feeling,
right.
who can't necessarily label the emotion because they don't understand it themselves. And so Ruler will help them. We'll teach them those tools. We'll teach them those vocabulary words. We'll
Right.
teach them how to label what the different emotions look like, because there are some that are very similar. When you're, for example, when you are anxious versus when you're nervous. Those are
Right.
very two similar feelings, but are different. And so we're
Right.
going to teach the kids what each one means so that they can label them themselves.
Yeah, I think that's really, really amazing. And I get, you pointed out that we're starting with the adults. Well, first off, unless you understand it and can practice it yourself, it's impossible to teach it to someone else, coach it to someone else, help them, through those steps, right? But then even beyond that, and I think we talked about this in a recent podcast, modeling is such an effective tool set. So even before the teachers start working directly with students, even just if they observe it, students are going to notice a difference in how we as adults are addressing things. Plus, we're reducing the triggers we're bringing forward for the kids, like the emotions that we exude, the emotions that are coming off of us. Kids really soak those up. So if we're anxious or nervous or frustrated, that anxiousness, nervousness, frustration kind of permeates and radiates out. And then the kids pick up on that, and that'll help to dysregulate them. So if we start with adults, we have a better baseline. But then beyond that, moving forward, the adults also are in a better place to help the kids through it. So appreciate that we're doing that. And then, so is this just something that's good for a teacher in the classroom? Or like you mentioned some examples of you being at home, but like how do we take it outside of school and help it make our lives in their entirety better?
Well, I'm glad that you said that. Well, one, I wanted to kind of chime in on that is you can't help someone regulate if you are not regulated yourself.
100%.
And so we are actually going to be doing at our next community council, we're going to be teaching our family a little bit about Ruler, and we're going to be going through a few activities, starting with the mood meter, which is one that I have started using with my teammates. We do it at Leadership Council. I know schools are starting to do it. I do it at home because when you how was your day today, sweetie? Fine. What did you learn? Nothing.
The standard teen or tween answer, right?
So then we shifted to, okay, tell me where you're feeling right now. Where you're feeling right now on the mood meter. Are you high energy but low pleasantness? Are you high energy, high pleasantness? Are you high pleasantness but maybe low energy? Or are you low pleasantness, low energy? And so it helps that conversation, or we talk about our day at the dinner table. It's been a great tool to help just kind of navigate those teenage years, or just to navigate when you get the typical, "It was fine. What'd you learn today? Nothing. How was school? Boring."
Yeah.
And it's helped really that conversation and getting them talking about their days a little bit more. What was what was the best part of your day? What was the hardest part of your day?
Yeah.
How are you feeling now? kind of, and then how can we, if we're maybe not, if we're in like low energy and low pleasantness,
Mhm.
how can we shift to higher pleasantness? And like,
Right.
what's some things that we can do? Could we go on a walk? Could we listen to some upbeat music? Things
Mhm.
like that. So it can help. It's a great tool for parents to use at home for our families, but
Right.
also for us in the classroom. So imagine when a child is coming in dysregulated, like they missed the bus.
Mhm.
Then so let's picture one
Mhm.
child. They could have two experiences, right? They get up in the morning, they realize their alarm didn't go off,
Mhm.
or they slept through their alarm, which means that they missed the bus,
Mhm.
which means that either then they have to either ask their parents for a ride, who
Right.
might be frustrated because they're having to take them, because then that
Yeah.
makes them a little bit late to work. And so then the child comes in, someone asks, "Oh, you're late again today. Like,
Right.
why?" And so it's just kind of adding to that, adding to that. And then you get into the classroom, the teacher's frustrated because this is the fourth time in the last 2 weeks you've
Mhm.
shown up late. And it's like, "Oh, you're late again. Like, what can we do to get you here on time?" Right?
Mhm.
So that just kind of levels up. And then or a child could have an experience coming in, they're already anxious because they slept through the alarm. They're already anxious
Mhm.
because they missed their bus. Maybe it was a little bit, maybe they had to walk to school because a parent was already at work, because
Right.
that's a reality for a lot of our students. I
Yeah.
know that was my reality. My mom was at work, and if I
Mhm.
missed the bus, I was walking.
Yeah.
Um, and so that just kind of adds to it. Or they can come
Mhm.
into the office, they could take a meta moment, they could pause, take a deep breath, picture what they want their day to be like, picture
Mhm.
what they could, and then kind of advance forward. The teacher greets them. "Hey, I know you're a little bit late today, but we're so happy that you're here. Let's talk about what we can do to help you get here on time. Is there
Mhm.
anything you need?" Now let's kind of look at where we're at on the mood meter, and let's
Yeah.
talk about how we can shift ourselves into a more positive place.
Yeah, I mean, even that first adult who greets them, if instead of
Mm-hmm.
starting with "Why are you late again,"
Mm-hmm.
they start with "You look a little, you know, dysregulated. Can you talk to me about how you're feeling today?
Mm-hmm.
What quadrant are you in?" Right. So I think that's pretty powerful to like kind of engage kids where they're at, help them get to a regulated state, sets everything on a better pathway to move forward. Same thing, I think, in our personal relationships. Like if you're engaging with your spouse, they've just come home from work, they throw everything on the floor. You could be like, "What the heck's wrong with you
Yes.
today?" Or you could be like, "You seem a little out of sorts. Which quadrant are you in?" Right. And I love the concept of the quadrants and then using that as a broader framework to then be able to drill down into maybe a more specific emotional state, which I think is really powerful. So, well, I greatly appreciate that you are working so hard to bring those tool sets into
Mm-hmm.
our district. I think it's a huge benefit, both for our teachers and our staff and our leaders, but also for eventually for our kids and our families as well. I'm excited at our next community council that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be, kind of doing a preview for our families. I think they're really going to enjoy it, and appreciate you taking the time to be with us
All
here
right.
today.
Thank you.